Picture this, a life poured out, drop by drop, for someone else. Every dawn breaking not with promise for yourself, but with a fierce resolve to build a future for your child. A child facing hurdles that seemed insurmountable, shadowed by hardship. Imagine making sacrifices so profound, so silent, they echo only in the quiet chambers of your own heart, or just to witness that child climb, reach, become. Old, grainy photos might flash in the mind. A humble home, a tired but determined woman, a young boy playing basketball with worn shoes, starkly contrasted with the glare of stadium lights and the roar of cheering crowds. This was the unwavering path walked by Dolores Jordan, a titan in spirit, cloaked in quiet dignity, a mother whose resilience became the bedrock upon which a legend was built. Through shadows and storms, her faith in her son never flickered. But even the strongest bedrock can be shaken. Dolores believed she knew the peaks and valleys of her life's journey. What she didn't know was that her son, Michael Jordan, the name whispered in all across the globe, had forgotten nothing. Not a single patched-up shirt, not one late-night prayer, not 1 ounce of her unwavering belief. Today, Dolores Jordan stands on the precipice of a moment designed to crown her lifetime of love with unimaginable joy. A surprise meticulously crafted by the son she poured everything into. But fate, as it often does, held a twist, a subtle shift in the emotional current hinting at suspense. Before the tears of joy can fall, she's about to face an encounter so unexpected, so jarring, it threatens to overshadow everything. A moment of raw, stinging humiliation that will resonate deep within the heart of anyone watching. What happens when the dazzling light of fame collides with hidden prejudice? How does a mother's quiet strength withstand a storm she never saw coming? And what staggering truth waits just beyond the shadows? The story unfolds now, a journey about sacrifice, profound gratitude, and an emotional revelation promising to leave one breathless. The autumn sun, the color of old gold, dappled through the turning leaves, casting dancing reflections across Chicago. Inside a hushed, impeccably designed private office, Michael Jordan wasn't just looking out the window. He was looking back through time. A basketball, as familiar to his hands as his own heartbeat, spun rhythmically, a leathery metronome counting back the years, the struggles, the dreams. The scent of expensive wood polish and success hung in the air, a stark contrast to the scent of bleach and hard work that perfumed his childhood memories. "Mr. Jordan, are you absolutely certain about proceeding now?" Thomas, his real estate advisor, interrupted the reverie. Thomas, a man accustomed to the orbits of the rich and famous, held a black leather folder that felt heavier than its weight suggested. It contained the blueprints, not just of a property, but of a promise kept across decades. Michael stopped the ball's hypnotic spin. He toned, the casual posture gone, replaced by the laser focus that terrified opponents on the court. Determination hardened his gaze. "Thomas," he said, his voice low but resonant, "I've never been sure of anything in my entire life. She deserves this. She deserves the world." Thomas, ever the professional, gave a respectful nod. He'd seen fortune spent on fleeting whims, on extravagant statements. But this felt different. This wasn't about portfolio diversification. It was about deeply rooted emotion. "All the paperwork is finalized, Mr. Jordan. The property officially belongs to Dolores Jordan." He extended a heavy, gold pen, the instrument that would seal this monumental gesture. Michael took the pen, its coolness a contrast to the warmth spreading through his chest. He hesitated, his eyes lingering on his mother's name, elegantly printed on the deed. Dolores Jordan, a name synonymous with strength, sacrifice, and unwavering love. A faint smile touched his lips as he signed, the ink flowing as smoothly as one of his signature fade-away jumpers. "She has absolutely no idea what's coming," Michael murmured, the words carrying the weight of years of planning and dreaming. 3 weeks melted away like spring snow. Now, Michael was behind the wheel of his gleaming Mercedes, cruising down a highway ribboning through Chicago's affluent suburbs. Beside him, Dolores Jordan, sharp and elegant even in her casual attire, gazed out at the passing landscape, a mixture of curiosity and maternal suspicion in her eyes. "Michael Jeffrey Jordan," she began, using the tone that instantly transported him back to his teenage years. "Are you going to tell your mother where we are going, or am I supposed to guess for the next hour?" It was that perfect blend, authority softened by undeniable affection. Michael chuckled, keeping his eyes on the road. Mom, if I told you, it wouldn't be a surprise. Now would it? Just relax and enjoy the ride. Dolores adjusted the light blue scarf around her neck, a souvenir from one of Michael's global triumphs. She was 81 years young, yet carried herself with a regal poise honed not by wealth, but by navigating life's challenges with grace. Her mind buzzed with possibilities. What surprise could Michael have cooked up this time? As he drove, Michael stole glances at her. He saw not just his mother, but the anchor of his life. The memories flooded back, vivid and potent. He saw their small house in Wilmington, North Carolina, a world away from these manicured lawns. He remembered the leaky roof that dripped rhythmically during summer downpours, the heater that sputtered and died on the coldest winter nights. But he mostly remembered Dolores' constant refrain. It doesn't matter if the roof leaks, son, as long as there's love underneath it. And love? Love was the one commodity they were never short on. He saw her, younger, exhausted after double shift, still finding the energy to patch his only decent pair of sneakers. He smelled the cookies she baked before every big game, even when fatigue etched deep lines around her eyes. He saw the flicker of the small candle she lit every single night, her lips moving in silent prayer for his safety, for his future.
One memory stood out, sharp and clear. He was 14, maybe 15. Woken by thirst, he'd found her at the kitchen table, the only light a dim bulb overhead, meticulously sewing a tear in his school uniform, a casualty of a particularly intense backyard basketball game. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, testament to sleepless hours. "Why aren't you sleeping, Mama?" he'd asked, his voice thick with sleep. She'd looked up, her smile tired but genuine. "Some things can't wait till tomorrow, Michael. And you're one of them." That image, that quiet act of devotion, was seared into his soul. It fueled him through grueling practices, through championship pressures, through every triumph and setback. "Michael, you seem miles away." Dolores' voice gently pulled him back to the luxurious present. "Just thinking, Mom," he replied smoothly. "Thinking about what, day?" He glanced at her, a soft smile playing on his lips. "About how life sometimes gives you a chance to come full circle." The car turned onto a wide, tree-lined avenue, the sense of arrival palpable. Grand houses, set far back from the road, stood like silent sentinels of success. Michael's heart began to thump against his ribs. Almost there. Months of covert operations, hushed meetings with Thomas, scouting properties under pseudonyms, weaving intricate little white lies to keep Dolores unsuspecting. It was all converging on this single moment. "My goodness, this neighborhood is stunning," Dolores commented, her eyes taking in the sculpted gardens bursting with color, the pristine sidewalks, the air of quiet opulence. "Did one of your friends move out this way?" "Something like that, Mom," Michael replied, his voice deliberately vague as he slowed the car, pulling up to an elegant wrought iron gate. Dolores peered through the windshield, her breath catching slightly. Beyond the gates, a sweeping driveway lined with perfectly sculpted trees led to a magnificent two-story Georgian mansion. White columns framed the entrance, tall windows gleamed, reflecting the azure sky. To the right, a garden exploded in a riot of blooms, roses, hydrangeas, lilies, a living tapestry that looked lifted from an impressionist painting. "Heavens, Michael, who lives here?" Dolores asked, or coloring her voice. Michael switched off the engine, the sudden silence amplifying the moment's gravity. He took a deep breath. "Right now, Mom? No one." He got out, walked around, and opened her door with a flourish, offering his arm. Dolores took it, still looking puzzled but intrigued. As they walked up the stone pathway towards the grand entrance, Thomas, the realtor, materialized at the door, his professional smile perfectly in place. He gave Michael a subtle, almost imperceptible nod. Phase 2 initiated. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Jordan," Thomas said warmly, extending his hand. "It's an absolute pleasure to finally meet you. Michael has told me so much about you." Dolores shook his hand, her inherent grace shining through despite her confusion. "The pleasure is mine, Mr. Thomas Wilson, from Exclusive Properties," he supplied smoothly. "I'm here today to give you a private tour of this remarkable property." "A tour?" Dolores turned to Michael, one eyebrow arched in that way only mothers can manage. "Are you thinking of buying another house, son? I thought you were happy where you are." Michael offered a shrug laden with mystery. Just exploring options, Mom. Never hurts to look, right? Shall we? Thomas swung open the massive, dark wood front door, revealing an interior that commanded attention. The impact was immediate. Dolores stepped into a breathtaking foyer. Sunlight streamed through a Palladian window, illuminating a floor of gleaming Italian marble. High above, a crystal chandelier, intricate and dazzling, scattered prisms of light across the space. A quiet gasp escaped Dolores's lips as her eyes drank in the sheer scale and elegance. It's simply extraordinary, she murmured, almost to herself. Michael watched her, his heart swelling. He knew his mother's quiet reserve. He knew genuine or when he saw it. This wasn't just polite appreciation. This house was speaking to something deep within her. Thomas expertly guided them. The living room, vast and airy, with floor-to-ceiling windows framing the stunning gardens, elicited a soft sigh. Imagine the sunlight in the mornings, Dolores whispered. The library, paneled in rich cherry wood, with bookshelves soaring towards the high ceiling, drew a comment. Oh, all the books I could finally unpack properly. But it was the kitchen that truly stopped her in her tracks. It was enormous. Sleek, professional-grade stainless steel appliances gleamed. Expansive granite countertops shone under recessed lighting. And in the center, a massive island, easily large enough to accommodate a gaggle of grandchildren helping bake cookies. Dolores ran a hand almost reverently over the cool, smooth granite. This kitchen. Her voice was thick with emotion. Michael, do you remember? I always used to tear out pictures from magazines. I'd say, if I ever had my dream kitchen, it would have an island just like this. Big enough for everyone to gather round. A lump formed in Michael's throat. Yes, Mom. I remember. That specific detail, that long-held, casually mentioned dream, was precisely why this house, out of dozens viewed, was the one. The moment he saw that island, he knew. Sensing the depth of the moment, Thomas discreetly faded back, pretending to examine a fixture in the adjoining breakfast nook, affording them a sliver of privacy. It's pretty perfect, isn't it? Michael asked softly, watching his mother explore the space with a wonder usually reserved for children discovering a magical toy. Perfect doesn't even begin to cover it, she replied, opening and closing drawers with soft clicks, running her fingers along the edge of the deep farmhouse sink. Whoever gets to live here, they are going to be one very, very fortunate soul.
The tour continued. The back porch, spacious and furnished with elegant, comfortable outdoor seating, offered a panoramic vista of the manicured ground sloping gently down toward a small, shimmering pond where a family of ducks paddled serenely. I can just picture family dinners out here on warm summer evenings, Dolores mused, her voice soft, lost in the vision. Imagine the grandchildren running on that lawn, maybe chasing those ducks. Michael smiled, his own imagination painting the same scene. It would be perfect, wouldn't it? Thomas reappeared, his timing impeccable. Shall we explore the upstairs? The private quarters are equally impressive. Dolores looked at Michael, seeking confirmation. He nodded, anticipation tightening his chest. The master suite was a pièce de résistance, and he'd overseen specific, personal touches. They ascended the sweeping central staircase, the plush runners silencing their steps, the anticipation building subtly. The master bedroom was indeed a sanctuary, flooded with natural light, anchored by a king-size bed position to catch the morning sun. It featured a cozy gas fireplace and a walk-in closet that could house a boutique. But the true showstopper was the en-suite bathroom. Dolores stopped at the threshold, her eyes widening. It was a spa-like haven of marble and chrome. And there, positioned perfectly beside a large window overlooking the tranquil garden, was a deep, inviting soaking tub. A bathtub. Like this, Dolores whispered, the words barely audible, reverence in her tone. She turned to Michael, her eyes shining with a dawning, almost fearful, hope. Do you remember, Michael, how I always said my one little luxury dream was to have a bathtub deep enough to really soak an after-long day, with salt and maybe even a candle? Every word, Mom. I remember every single word. Michael thought back to their shared bathroom growing up, the cramped shower stall, the sputtering water pressure. His mother, who never truly complained, dreaming aloud of the simple luxury of a relaxing bath after hours on her feet. I remember, Mom, he managed, his own voice thick with emotion he struggled to contain. They viewed the other bedrooms, guest suites, potential offices, a room easily imagined filled with children's laughter. Each was elegant, spacious, perfect. By the time they descended back into the grand foyer, Dolores was visibly moved, her composure momentarily fragile. "It's a magnificent house, Michael. Truly, whoever you're recommending this to, they will be overjoyed." Michael met Thomas's eye. A silent signal passed between them. "It's time." "Actually, Mom," Michael began, taking a deep breath, "I didn't recommend it to anyone. I've already bought it." "Oh!" Dolores looked genuinely surprised. "So, it's for you then? Another one?" "Michael, your current place is enormous." "It's not for me, Mom," Michael replied, that mysterious smile returning, playing at the corners of his lips. Dolores frowned, confusion clouding her features. "Well, if it's not for you, then who is it for?" The air crackled with unspoken words, with decades of held-back gratitude, reaching an emotional peak before softening with expectancy. Michael felt his heart pound, a frantic rhythm against his ribs. This was it. Thomas, executing the plan flawlessly, discreetly handed Michael a slim, elegant envelope and then, with a quiet murmur about checking the exterior lighting, stepped outside, leaving mother and son alone in the echoing grandeur of the foyer. Michael held the envelope, the paper cool against his suddenly warm hand. He gathered his courage, the carefully rehearsed speeches vanishing from his mind, inadequate against the sheer weight of the moment. "Michael," Dolores prompted gently, her gaze full of loving curiosity. "Mom," he started, his voice deeper, richer with emotion than usual. "Do you remember when I was just a skinny kid, tripping over my own feet, and you used to say that one day I was going to be someone, that everyone would know my name?" A soft, reminiscent smile touched Dolores' lips. Her eyes glistened. "Of course, I remember, baby, but you were always important to me. Always." The lump in Michael's throat tightened. You worked so hard, Mom. Double shifts, nights you barely slept, just to make sure I had decent sneakers for the court. You sacrificed weekends, holidays, you sacrificed everything. For us, for me. "I did what any mother would do, Michael," she replied simply, but the tremor in her voice betrayed the depth of her own memories. "No, Mom." Michael shook his head, meeting her gaze directly. "You did so much more. 4 years. I saw you looking at pictures of beautiful houses in those magazines. I heard you talking, sometimes just dreaming aloud, about having a real garden for your flowers, a big kitchen for family gatherings, a porch where you could just sit and drink your tea in peace." Dolores watched him, her expression shifting from confusion to a dawning, almost unbelievable understanding. A flicker of hope, perhaps, mixed with disbelief. "The day I signed my first big contract," Michael continued, his voice earnest, "I made a promise to myself that one day I would give you everything you deserved, everything you dreamed of but never, ever asked for." His hand, steady now despite the emotion coursing through him, extended the envelope towards her. Mom, this is just a start. A small down payment on my thank you for everything you are." Dolores took the envelope cautiously, as if it might burn her fingers. Her movements were slow, deliberate. She opened the flap, her fingers trembling slightly as she slid out the documents inside. Her eyes scanned the first few lines, legal jargon, property descriptions, and then they landed on the deed. They widened in shock. Her breath hitched. "Michael, this says." Suddenly, the sharp, clear chime of the doorbell rang out, echoing jarringly through the cavernous foyer, shattering the intensely personal moment with abrupt suspense. Both Michael and Dolores startled. "Ah," Michael said, quickly composing himself, though a flicker of annoyance crossed his face. He discreetly tucked the envelope, the deed Dolores hadn't fully processed yet, back into his inner jacket pocket. "That must be Mr. Richardson." "Richardson?" Dolores asked, hastily wiping a stray tear that had escaped. "Who's that?" "Is he, the sales director for the real estate company," Michael explained, adjusting his posture, slipping back into his public persona. He apparently insisted on being here to finalize some details. Didn't expect him quite so soon. Just then, Thomas reappeared, looking flustered. "Mr. Jordan, my apologies for the intrusion, but Mr. Richardson is here. He was quite insistent on speaking with you personally." Michael gave Thomas a tight nod, exchanging a look that spoke volumes. This wasn't the plan. The reveal was meant to be theirs alone. But decades in the spotlight had taught Michael that life rarely sticks to the script. "All right, Thomas, let him in." He turned to his mother with a reassuring smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "This should only take a moment, Mom." Thomas hesitated, then opened the grand door wider. In strode a man who seemed sculpted from ambition and expensive tailoring. Mid-50s, lean, with meticulously groomed silvering temples and the kind of deep artificial tan that spoke of sunbeds, not sunshine. His navy suit was razor-sharp. "Actually," Dolores responded, her voice still calm but firm, "I set up Michael's entire home entertainment system myself. I've always been rather adept with technology." Richardson raised his eyebrows in feigned surprise. "Is that so? Impressive. One doesn't often encounter ladies of your generation quite so tech-savvy." Michael felt his jaw clench. Your generation. The words hung there, laden with casual ageism and condescension. He opened his mouth to intervene, but Richardson had already pivoted, leading the way towards the kitchen. "And here," he announced grandly, "the true heart of the home. Professional-grade everything. Italian marble countertops, sub-zero refrigeration, only the finest. Perfect for a private chef, I imagine. You do have a private chef, don't you, Mr. Jordan?" "My mother," Michael stated, his voice clipped, firm, "is the finest cook I've ever known. I've never needed a private chef when I could have her cooking." Richardson offered another condescending smile. "Ah, yes, homemade meals certainly have their charm. But a kitchen of this standard truly deserves a professionally trained hand. Wouldn't you agree? It would be rather like—" He paused, searching for an analogy, giving a Ferrari to someone who's only ever driven a sensible sedan. No offense intended, of course. He laughed again, looking expectantly at Michael, seeking validation, completely missing the icy glare he received in return. "Perhaps we could see the gardens now," Dolores suggested, her voice polite but carrying an edge of weariness, clearly trying to redirect the increasingly uncomfortable tour. "Ah, the grounds. Excellent suggestion." Richardson agreed with false enthusiasm. As they stepped outside onto the terrace, he deliberately slowed his pace, letting Michael and Thomas walk a few steps ahead, falling into step beside Dolores. "You know, Mrs. Jordan," he began, his voice lowered conspiratorially, though the plastic smile remained firmly in place. "It's truly admirable seeing how proud you are of your son. It must be quite surreal for someone like yourself to find yourself in an environment such as this." Dolores stopped in tone, looking him directly in the eye. Her gaze was steady, unwavering. "What exactly do you mean, Mr. Richardson?" "Someone like myself?" Richardson gave a slight, dismissive shrug. "Well, no disrespect intended, but my understanding is that Michael comes from, shall we say, rather modest origins. Wilmington, wasn't it? Your husband was military, you were a bank teller, then nursing, I believe? It must feel," he gestured vaguely at the opulent surroundings, "like stepping into an entirely different universe." The emphasis on modest, the cataloging of her past jobs, it wasn't admiration, it was classification. Dolores felt a familiar heat rise within her, but decades of quiet resilience held it in check. "I believe, Mr. Richardson," she stated, her voice low but clear, "that a person's worth is not measured by the square footage of their house." Richardson's smile tightened, not reaching his eyes. A noble sentiment, very maternal. "But let's be candid, Mrs. Jordan. In this world," he gestured expansively again, encompassing the mansion, the gardens, the implied lifestyle, where it is often precisely what matters. In estates like this, they tend to attract, and are intended for individuals who have achieved a certain level. Thomas, who had drifted closer, cleared his throat loudly, discomfort etched on his face. He clearly sensed the dangerous territory Richardson was navigating. "Mr. Richardson, perhaps we should proceed to the fountain? It's a rather spectacular feature imported from Italy." "Excellent thinking, Thomas." Richardson readily agreed, turning his attention back to Michael, seemingly relieved to refocus on the important person. "You'll adore the fountain, Mr. Jordan." The previous owner spared no expense. As they walked across the emerald lawn towards the ornate fountain, Richardson resumed his monologue, a stream of brand names, price tags, and exclusivity. Michael watched his mother out of the corner of his eye. He saw it, that subtle withdrawal, the slight tightening around her mouth, the way she seemed to shrink into herself just a fraction. It was the same look she wore years ago when snide comments were made about how a boy like him ended up on a prestigious team. "And this open area here," Richardson continued, oblivious, gesturing towards a flat expanse of lawn, "perfect for entertaining. I imagine in your position, Mr. Jordan, you host frequently? Significant people, naturally. Celebrities, fellow athletes, titans of industry." "My family is significant to me," Michael replied curtly, his patience wearing dangerously thin. Richardson waved a dismissive hand. Of course. Family is paramount. But you understand my meaning. People within your sphere. Individuals who naturally belong in a setting like this." Dolores took another small step back, creating a physical distance from Richardson's toxic aura. Michael saw it. A sharp pang of protective anger shot through him. This was his mother, the woman whose sacrifices made all of this possible. And this pompous fool was making her feel unwelcome in what was about to be her own home. "You know," Richardson plowed on, completely deaf to the rapidly chilling atmosphere, "the neighbors here, they're all people of a certain pedigree, shall we say. CEOs, surgeons, legacy families. An extremely exclusive enclave. Zero crime, naturally. No, undesirable elements drifting through." He flicked a quick, assessing glance at Dolores, then turned back to Michael, lowering his voice slightly. "You understand what I'm implying, Mr. Jordan." Michael stopped walking. The air around him seemed to drop several degrees. He turned slowly to face Richardson. "Actually, Mr. Richardson," he said, his voice dangerously quiet, controlled, yet vibrating with an intensity that made Thomas visibly flinch, "I don't think I do. Why don't you clarify for me? Spell it out. What exactly do you mean by undesirable elements?" Richardson blinked, finally sensing the shift, the palpable anger radiating from the towering athlete. But he lacked the self-awareness to understand its source. "Well, you know, people who don't fit. People who wouldn't be comfortable." "Oh," he fumbled, digging himself deeper. "People whose presence might make the established residents uncomfortable. Lack of refinement, perhaps?" "Uncomfortable," Michael repeated, the word hanging heavy in the air. He took a deliberate step closer to Richardson. "Like, my mother might make someone uncomfortable." Richardson paled visibly. "No. Good heavens. No. That's not what I meant at all. Your mother is, well, she's your mother. Of course she's welcome." He attempted a placating smile, but it looked more like a grimace. "I was simply providing context. Professional duty. Ensuring my high-profile clients fully understand the social dynamics of the neighborhood they're investing in. Standards." Dolores spoke, her voice soft but cutting through the tension like a knife. Her composure was absolute, her dignity a stark contrast to Richardson's flustered state. "Standards based on what, precisely, Mr. Richardson?" The man began to sweat, his expensive suit suddenly looking too tight. "Well, on, social standing, financial capacity, background, refinement, things that are important for maintaining the character and property values of the community." "And you believe I lack sufficient refinement, Mr. Richardson?" Dolores asked, her gaze direct, pinning him like a butterfly to a board. Richardson swallowed hard, darting a desperate look towards Michael, seeking rescue. He found none, only glacial fury. I certainly didn't intend to imply." "Mrs. Jordan, please understand, I was merely doing my job." "And you think," Dolores continued, her voice gaining strength, though still quiet and controlled. That I don't understand where my son invests his money? Do you think, after a lifetime of navigating worlds that tried to tell me I didn't belong, that I don't recognize judgment when I see it, when I feel it? Richardson looked trapped, his eyes darting around a pristine garden as if seeking an escape route. Mrs. Jordan, please, this is all a terrible misunderstanding. I only meant— You were perfectly clear, Mr. Richardson, Dolores interrupted, her voice firm, final. And don't you worry yourself. I've encountered men like you my entire life. She turned then, drawing herself up to her full, dignified height, the hurt visible in her eyes but overshadowed by her inherent strength. She looked at her son. Michael, dear, I believe I've seen quite enough. Shall we go? Michael didn't answer. His face was a mask of controlled rage, his eyes locked on Richardson. For a terrifying second, Richardson looked genuinely afraid, as if suddenly remembering he wasn't just insulting an elderly woman, but the mother of Michael Jordan, a man legendary for his competitive fire and long memory. Mr. Jordan. Richardson stammered, his professional veneer completely shattered, replaced by raw panic. Please, I assure you, no offense was intended. It was simply a clumsy presentation. Your job, Michael repeated, his voice dangerously low, each word deliberate, includes making my mother feel less than the queen she is in my eyes. Richardson seemed to shrink. Absolutely not. It was a ghastly error in judgment, a misunderstanding. There was no misunderstanding, Michael stated, his voice flat, cold. You made your assessment perfectly clear. And you know what's truly ironic, Mr. Richardson. He took another step forward, closing the remaining distance, towering over the now trembling realtor. You spent the last half hour trying to impress me, trying to align yourself with me, acting like we inhabit the same stratosphere. But let me tell you something. He paused, letting the silence stretch, heavy with menace. You wouldn't be worthy to polish my mother's shoes. A profound silence descended upon the sun-drenched garden, moving towards an emotional resolution. Thomas looked like he wanted the earth to swallow him whole. Dolores stood tall, her quiet dignity radiating a power that dwarfed Richardson's expensive suit and panicked expression. Michael, she said softly, laying a gentle hand on her son's tense arm. Let's just go. This place, it isn't for us. Those words, it isn't for us, struck Michael harder than any insult Richardson could have hurled. Months of planning, the dream of this perfect surprise, the culmination of a lifelong promise, unraveling because of one man's ignorant prejudice. His mother, the woman who deserved the world, now believed he'd brought her here merely to tantalize her with a life she couldn't have, only to have her feel unwelcome. Mom, he began, anguish in his voice, but Dolores was already turning, walking back towards the mansion, her back straight, her stride conveying a deep, quiet hurt. Michael shot one final, scorching glare at the wilting Richardson before turning to follow her. Thomas scurried behind, murmuring apologies that dissipated in the tense air. Back in the grand foyer, Dolores picked up her handbag from the console table, her movements clipped, efficient. She headed for the massive front door without a word. Michael watched her, a knot tightening in his chest, his throat raw. Everything had gone disastrously wrong. What should have been the pinnacle of joy had curdled into humiliation. Mom, wait, he pleaded, reaching her just as her hand touched the ornate door handle. Please, just wait. Dolores stopped, her back still to him. When she finally turned, unshed tears shimmered in her eyes, held back only by sheer force of will. Why, Michael? She asked, her voice trembling despite her efforts. Why did you bring me here? To show me a world I'll never truly be a part of? To let me glimpse a dream, only to have someone remind me I don't belong? The raw pain in her question pierced him. No, Mom, that's not it at all. I would never. Do you have any idea, she continued, the words tumbling out now, the dam of her composure finally cracking, how many times in my life I've been sized up and dismissed before I even opened my mouth? How many times I've been made to feel less than because of where I came from, or the color of my skin, or the job I held? How many Richardsons I've had to smile politely at while my heart was aching? Michael felt his own eyes sting. I know, Mom. God, I know. Then why? Her voice broke. Why bring me here? To endure it again? In a place like this? Was it to remind me that no matter how famous my son is, no matter how much money he earns, to men like that, I'll always just be a woman from Wilmington who doesn't fit in their perfect, exclusive world? Michael stepped forward, gently taking her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. You're wrong, Mom. You are so wrong. Thomas, who had hovered uncertainly near the staircase, cleared his throat. Mr. Jordan, shall I, perhaps, call your driver or? No, Michael answered firmly, his gaze locked on his mother's tear-filled eyes. We're not going anywhere. Not yet. At that exact moment, Richardson scurried back in through the garden doors, his face a mask of desperate contrition. Mr. Jordan, Mrs. Jordan, please, allow me to reiterate, there has been a terrible, terrible misunderstanding. I never intended. Shut up, Michael commanded, the order slicing through the air without him even glancing at the man. His entire focus was on Dolores. Mom, he said, his voice softening, filled with urgency and love. You're right about one thing. Men like Richardson, small men hiding in big suits, they are everywhere. But you are completely wrong about why I brought you here today. Slowly, deliberately, he reached into his inner jacket pocket and retrieved the slim envelope, the deed. He held it out to her again, his eyes pleading for her to understand. I didn't bring you here to dangle a dream you couldn't have, Mom, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I brought you here to give you something you should have had a long, long time ago. Something you earned 1,000 times over. He pressed the envelope gently into her hands. Take it, please. Hesitantly, her eyes searching his face, Dolores took the envelope for the second time. This time, she didn't hesitate. Her fingers, still trembling slightly, pulled out the documents. Her eyes scanned the page, past the legal text, finding the line, owner of record, and there, printed clearly, unequivocally, was her name, Dolores Jordan. Her breath caught in her throat. Her eyes shot from the paper to Michael's face, then back to the paper, then around the magnificent foyer, the marble floor, the crystal chandelier, the soaring ceiling. Disbelief warred with a dawning, staggering realization. Michael, does this mean? Richardson, who had crept closer, desperate to salvage the situation, craned his neck just enough to see the name on the deed. A strangled gasp escaped him, a sound of pure, unadulterated horror. Yes, Mom, Michael confirmed, a slow, triumphant, loving smile finally breaking through the tension on his face, the emotional tide turning powerfully. It means this house, it's yours. Every brick, every floorboard, every flower in that garden. That dream kitchen with the big island, it's your kitchen. That soaking tub you always wanted, it's waiting for you. But how? When? Dolores stammered, the words barely forming, her mind struggling to absorb the seismic shift in reality. I bought it 3 weeks ago, Mom, Michael explained gently. It was supposed to be a surprise. My way, just a small way, of trying to say thank you for every single sacrifice, every prayer, every bit of love you poured into me, into all of us. Dolores looked down at the deed again, then up at the house, her house. The full weight of it began to settle, pushing out the hurt, replacing it with overwhelming shock and emotion. Her gaze then drifted, inevitably, to the ghost-pale Victor Richardson. A new light entered her eyes, a spark of understanding, of justice, of irony. So, she said slowly, her voice regaining its strength, tinged now with disbelief and a touch of challenge. If I understand this correctly, Mr. Richardson, you were just suggesting that the owner of this multi-million-dollar estate isn't quite refined enough to live in it. The silence that followed was absolute, broken only by the sound of Richardson's ragged breathing. His face cycled through shades of disbelief, horror, and abject professional terror. I, Mrs. Jordan, Mr. Jordan, I had no, he stammered, utterly incoherent. My mother, Michael stated, his voice ringing with authority and protective love, is not here for your approval or assessment. She is here because this is her home. He turned fully to Richardson, his expression uncompromising. Your presence is no longer required. Leave the keys, any remaining documents, on the foyer table. My attorney will be in contact with your agency tomorrow regarding your unprofessional conduct. It wasn't just a dismissal. It was a career catastrophe for Richardson, delivered by one of the most powerful figures in the city. He mumbled incoherent apologies, backing away as if fleeing a burning building, fumbling with keys and papers before practically bolting out the front door. The heavy door clicked shut, leaving an echoing silence. Dolores stood frozen, the deed clutched in her hand, staring at her son as the enormity of his gesture finally, truly, began to sink in. Tears welled, not from hurt this time, but from overwhelming love and disbelief. "Michael," she whispered, her voice thick, choked with emotion. "Oh, Michael, what have you done?" He stepped closer, gently taking her hands, the hands that had worked tirelessly, that had comforted him, guided him, into his own larger ones. "I bought you the house of your dreams, Mom," he said simply, his voice softer now, filled with tenderness. "The one you used to point out in the magazines. The one with the big porch and the rocking chair for watching the sunset." Dolores shook her head slowly, still trying to grasp it. Her eyes swept the grand foyer again, truly seeing it now as haze. "No, it's too much, Michael. Far too much." A genuine, radiant smile lit up Michael's face, the kind reserved for moments of pure, unadulterated joy. "No, Mom," he countered gently, kneeling before her, bringing himself to her eye level. "It's not even close. It's not nearly enough." He saw the rocking chair waiting on the back porch in his mind's eye. He saw the bathtub ready for her tired bones. He saw the kitchen island waiting for family gatherings. He stood and retrieved a small, polished wooden box from the console table where Thomas had discreetly left it earlier. He placed it gently in his mother's hands. "Open it, Mom." With trembling fingers, Dolores lifted the lid. Nestled on deep blue velvet lay a single, ornate golden key. Attached to it was a small, handwritten tag. In Michael's familiar script, it read, "For the woman who gave me the keys to the world." That was the moment, the final piece clicking into place. The full, breathtaking scale of her son's love and gratitude washed over Dolores Jordan. This wasn't just a mansion. It was validation. It was remembrance. It was every silent sacrifice answered, every dream she deferred for her children now realized for her. "Oh, Michael." She couldn't speak anymore. Deep, heartfelt sobs shook her small frame as tears of profound joy streamed down her face. Michael rose and gently guided her toward the plush sofas in the nearby sitting area. He sat beside her, putting a comforting arm around her trembling shoulders, letting her cry, letting the decades of emotion pour out. After several long moments, Dolores gradually regained her composure, wiping her eyes with a handkerchief Michael provided. She looked at him, her eyes filled with a love so immense it seemed to fill the entire room. "You remembered," she whispered. "All those little things. The porch, the bathtub, the island." "I remembered everything, Mom," he affirmed softly. "Every sacrifice, every word of encouragement, every late night you stayed up waiting, every early morning you got up to make sure we had what we needed. How could I ever forget?" He then stood, offering her his hand. "Come on," he said, a new excitement in his voice, the mood shifting to warm, joyful discovery. "The tour isn't over. Now, let me really show you your new home. Every single detail I picked out just for you." And so began the true tour, not a prospective buyer's, but as mother and son exploring the tangible manifestation of decades of love and dreams. He showed her the custom-built sewing room, bathed in natural light, stocked with the finest fabrics and threads, a tribute to the countless hours she'd spent mending their clothes. He opened the closet in the master suite, revealing outfits in her exact size and favorite styles, clothes she'd admired in store windows but never bought for herself. He led her to the library, where alongside new volumes sat her own cherished collection of worn books, transported secretly from her old home. In the kitchen, he opened a cabinet to reveal the exact set of porcelain dishes she had sighed over years ago, deeming them too extravagant. In the spa-like bathroom, the drawers were filled with fragrant bath salts and oils. On the expansive back porch, the rocking chair waited, perfectly positioned to catch the afternoon sun and the evening sunset over the tranquil pond. With every new discovery, Dolores's tears flowed afresh, but now they were tears of pure, unadulterated joy and disbelief. Each detail was a testament not just to Michael's wealth, but to his memory, his attention, his deep, abiding gratitude. Finally, as the sun began its fiery descent, painting the sky in breathtaking hues of orange, pink, and gold, Michael led her out into the garden, down a winding stone path, towards a charming white gazebo nestled amongst blooming rose bushes, her favorite. Inside, on a small table, sat a beautiful, leather-bound photo album. "I thought we could look through this," Michael said softly, "while we watch your first sunset here." Together, they sat on the comfortable bench, mother and son, opening the album. It wasn't filled with pictures of basketball triumphs, but with snapshots of their life, humble beginnings, family gatherings, school plays, graduations, birthdays. And on nearly every page, there was Dolores, younger, tired perhaps, but always radiating love, the steadfast center of their world. The last page held no photo. Instead, it contained a letter, handwritten by Michael. Dolores read it aloud, her voice trembling. "Dear Mom, how do you thank someone who gave you everything? Not just life, but a belief that you could conquer the world. This house is just bricks and mortar. The real foundation you gave me was love, strength, integrity, and a refusal to ever give up. The world sees the trophies, but I see the hands that guided me, the heart that believed in me when no one else did. This isn't a gift, Mom. It's just a small piece of the thanks I owe you, a debt I can never fully repay. Welcome home. With all my love, forever, Michael." As she finished reading, the sun dipped below the horizon, leaving a sky ablaze with color. Dolores closed the album, tears streaming silently now. She turned to her son, her legendary son, the boy she raised against all odds. "Oh, Michael," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "All the championships, they are wonderful. But the man you become, this is my greatest pride." He pulled her into a hug, tight and long, a hug that spanned decades, bridging the gap between the small house in Wilmington and his magnificent estate. "I learned from the best, Mom," he whispered into her hair. "I learned everything from you." As twilight deepened and the first stars began to prick the velvet sky, Dolores Jordan stood in the garden of her new home, arm in arm with her son, feeling a sense of peace and fulfillment wash over her that no amount of money could ever buy. It wasn't just about the house. It was about being seen, being remembered, being honored. It was about a lifetime of love coming full circle in the most spectacular way imaginable, a testament to love repaid, a story truly worthy of a fame finder's discovery.